Breaking news! Israel has launched its first ground offensive since Gaza's ceasefire collapse, partially recapturing key areas of the Gaza Strip. The January ceasefire brought a temporary halt to the bloodshed in Gaza. It was a fragile agreement, brokered with cautious optimism. A key stipulation involved the Netzarim corridor. This strategically important strip of land divides Gaza, north to south. Under the ceasefire, Israeli forces withdrew from the corridor, creating a buffer zone. However, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Israel accused Hamas of violating the terms. They claimed Hamas refused to release hostages captured in October. Hamas, in turn, blamed Netanyahu's government for the breakdown. They accused Israel of reneging on agreed-upon concessions. The ceasefire, meant to be a stepping stone towards peace, began to crumble. The blame game escalated, with each side accusing the other of bad faith. The situation deteriorated rapidly. Both sides hardened their positions. The fragile hope for a lasting peace quickly evaporated. The question was not if, but when the ceasefire would completely collapse. The relative calm of the ceasefire proved deceptive. The possibility of renewed violence loomed large. The breakdown of trust rendered the ceasefire untenable. With the ceasefire in tatters, Israel launched a multifaceted military operation. The Israel Defense Forces initiated a ground offensive into Gaza. Their objective: retake the strategically vital Netzarim corridor. Simultaneously, the Israeli Air Force unleashed a barrage of airstrikes. These targeted what the IDF termed terrorist infrastructure in densely populated Gaza. Palestinian casualties mounted rapidly. The United Nations reported a staggering number of civilian deaths, including women and children. The IDF maintained its operations were necessary. They emphasized the need to neutralize threats from Hamas. The ground offensive focused on key areas. The IDF, with superior firepower, made significant advances. They recaptured parts of the Netzarim corridor, tightening their grip on Gaza. Palestinian militants, outgunned and outmanned, fought back with fierce resistance. They employed guerrilla tactics, launching rockets into Israel. These attacks, while largely symbolic, demonstrated their resolve. The international community condemned the escalating violence. The United Nations called for an immediate ceasefire. They urged both sides to show restraint. However, their pleas fell on deaf ears. The conflict raged on, claiming more lives. The humanitarian situation in Gaza deteriorated rapidly. The unrelenting Israeli offensive plunged Gaza into a humanitarian crisis. The coastal enclave, already impoverished and densely populated, reeled under relentless bombardment. The United Nations warned of an impending famine. The Israeli blockade crippled Gaza's economy, restricting essential goods including food, medicine, and fuel. Hospitals faced overwhelming casualties. The healthcare system struggled to cope. The civilian population bore the brunt of the suffering. Families huddled in fear as bombs rained down. The lack of basic necessities exacerbated the crisis. The international community increased calls for humanitarian aid. However, the Israeli blockade remained a significant obstacle. Thousands fled their homes, seeking refuge in overcrowded shelters. These shelters became breeding grounds for disease. The psychological toll on children added another layer of suffering. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza is a stark reminder of the human cost of the conflict. The international community reacted to the renewed violence in Gaza with widespread condemnation and alarm. The United Nations Security Council convened emergency sessions. They condemned the violence and called for an immediate ceasefire. The United States faced increasing pressure to de-escalate the conflict. However, the U.S. maintained its support for Israel's right to defend itself. The European Union expressed deep concern and urged restraint. The Arab League condemned Israel's actions and called for peace talks. The conflict highlighted the limitations of international diplomacy. Is peace possible, or will the fighting continue? If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe to The Silent Observer to stay up to date with the latest news.